Praise the Lord, everyone. Brother Roop here. We're in the book of Acts, chapter 15, verse 29. If you're my subscriber, thank you very much. I'm honored and privileged. If you like these short little videos from 5 to 10 minutes long, go ahead and subscribe and ring the bell. We are in the book of Acts, chapter 15, verse 29. I'll read the verse. That ye abstain from meats offered to idols, and from blood, and from things strangled, and from fornication, which, if you would keep yourself, ye shall do well. Fare ye well. Now, the term fare ye well at the end is kind of awkward. I looked it up in the Aramaic. In the Aramaic, it says, obey Master Yeshua, in obedience to Master Yeshua. Here in King James, it says, fare ye well. I guess be fairly well according to Yeshua or Jesus. Anyway, I just want to point that out. So verse 29 here is pretty much a duplicate of verse 20. Verse 20 was the final agreement between the apostles at the first church conference. And for all you folks who, and I come across them more and more these days, people who think you ought to be eating a kosher diet like the Jews ate in the Old Testament. Sorry, but the first church conference looked at that and said, no, you don't have to do any of that Old Testament requirements. You don't have to be circumcised. You don't have to eat the kosher diet that the Jews were eating. You don't have to do the festivals. Gentiles can be Gentiles. You don't have to do all that. So that's good. We don't have to have too much religion. I don't like religion. But anyway, verse 29 is pretty much a duplicate of 20. It says that ye abstain from meats offered to idols. Now, they had temples to Greek and Roman gods back in those days, and people would dedicate food for the gods to eat. But being that these gods don't exist and never did exist, of course they can't eat. They can't eat. Years and years ago, I lived next to a Buddhist lady, and she would always put food outside for Buddha to eat, and of course she would always have to clean it up because Buddha doesn't exist. And he certainly did not eat any of that food, except maybe occasional bird fly over there and eat some, but that's about it. And so, but Christians, where everybody would buy that food because the temple, of course, the gods wouldn't eat the food, so they would resell that food in the back door of the temple. And it was very reasonably priced, and it was very popular for people to eat that food. To buy it, take it home, and eat it. For mature Christians, it was not a big deal because those idols didn't exist. So it wasn't that big of a deal. New Christians, we had to be more careful with the newer Christians because they lacked the understanding. And so they told the new Gentiles not to eat the food offered to idols, and from blood, and from things strangled. And of course, these things were also so that they would not offend the Jews. They didn't want to offend the Jews because Jews and Gentiles had to coexist. Jews were in the church in great numbers, and Gentiles were now coming in great numbers. So the two had to coexist. And so they made some rules for the new Christians to follow, not to offend the Jews. Of course, mature Christians knew that you really didn't have to do that. But For the sake of keeping peace, they made these little rules. And also from fornication. Again, that's the temples had temple prostitutes. And if the local farmer wanted to have a good crop that year, he would go to these fertility temples and have sex with the temple prostitutes. And that's how these temples were so popular. So I guess they had temple prostitutes. You have sex with them. So it for a certain percentage of the population, that was a good reason to go to church, or go to the temple, So anyway, I digress there. But yeah, these heathens, they would sacrifice their firstborn son or daughter to the temple to be prostitutes. And they'd spend their whole lives as prostitutes in the temple. And so if Farmer John, or Farmer Mary wanted to have children, or wanted their animals to reproduce, or wanted good crops, they would go to these temples and have sex with the temple prostitutes. And that's what that's a reference. Fornication was a reference to that, for Gentiles not to do that, because the Greek Gentiles were heavily involved in that kind of activity. And so they had to kind of put a stop to it. So, and everything else they could learn in the synagogue, everything else. So, and that's, and again, verse 29 is just a repeat of verse 20. And it's just a few rules. So basically, the apostles agreed that Gentiles could just be Gentiles. They didn't have to be Jews first and then follow the Jewish rules. Gentiles just come as Gentiles and love Jesus, and Jesus loved them back, and they get saved. Cornelius got saved. His whole family got saved. They wouldn't have to be Jews. And all the Gentiles that Paul and Cornelius were preaching to in Asia Minor, they didn't have to be Jews now. So it was good news for the Gentiles. Good news for the Gentiles, and there were just a few things. They had to stay away from temples, But if you're going to be a Christian, you should do that anyway, right? All right, next time we start at verse 30. God bless you, and thank you very much.